last few people to join in. If you are able to hear me, please type in with a yes or just raise your hand in the hand option. Otherwise, just type in with a yes in the chat box. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Study Permit webinar organized by IRCC. In this webinar, we will be discussing the new travel restrictions which have been in place by the Government of Canada since March 18th, 2020. And we will also be discussing and sharing with you information about the recent temporary changes, policy and processing changes with regards to study permit visa application and submission, and also the processing related changes. Just something to note before we start off with the webinar. Whatever information we will be sharing today, please note that it is valid only as of today, because as you understand, things are rapidly changing in this new pandemic scenario. And for the latest and updated information, please always follow us on our official immigration page at canada.ca, and also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Canada in India. So with that, let's begin with the webinar for today. My name is Anindita Buragohai, and I'm the Outreach Officer for IRCC Delhi, and I will be sharing with you information which will hopefully be helpful for you in terms of your travel to Canada as a student and also your study permit application. International students make significant cultural and social contributions to Canada, and I think that is something we always, as the government of Canada, we have never shied away from mentioning and saying out loud. Also, students generate more than $21 billion in economic activity for the country of Canada. And in order to provide support and reassure international students that we still consider them as a big priority, IRCC, or Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, have put in place a number of temporary policy changes since the onset of the pandemic. As you all know, usually the fall sessions are the sessions with the largest international student intake for pretty much all the universities and colleges in Canada. And there is nothing different this year. The fall 2020 semester has by far been the largest international intake. And this, as we all know, is fast approaching. And the most recently implemented measures were introduced on July 14th, and they are specifically aimed to help and provide support to this particular upcoming cohort. The changes that have been implemented and put in place will continue Canada's reputation as a premier destination for international students. And while the students continue receiving support from their designated learning institutes, we are also trying to provide all the necessary support and make all the temporary changes that needs to be put in place so that students have a smooth journey towards their transition into becoming an international student in Canada. So having said that, we would continue to encourage students to consider studying at Canadian institutions. And we understand that a lot of the DLIs have moved to an online format of learning for the semester of fall 2020, starting from September till 31st December 2020. However, in spite of that, we would still encourage you to continue your plans of studying in Canada. So let's move on and share with you the agenda for today's presentation. So as you can see, we will be discussing travel restrictions to Canada, the exemptions on those travel restrictions, the new changes that have been put in place for the study permit processing since the onset of COVID-19. We will be sharing a few fraud tips with you, and also we will be informing you on what you need to do before you travel to Canada and what happens once you land in Canada. And finally, the entire presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. So before I start the presentation, something that I would like to mention, you can share your questions in the Q&A option of your panel. So you can type in your questions right from the beginning or whenever they come to you, and we will take up all of them at the end of the presentation. So feel free to keep typing your questions. So let's start with the restrictions which are in place on travel to Canada. So in order to protect Canadians from the outbreak, the Government of Canada implemented travel restrictions back in March itself. And as per the recent announcement, those travel restrictions have been extended up to August 31st, 2020. And until further notice, those restrictions say that most foreign nationals cannot travel to Canada, even if they have a valid visitor visa or an electronic travel authorization. And these restrictions primarily aim at stopping non-essential and non-discretionary travel to Canada. So, who can enter Canada? So, in spite of the travel restrictions which are in place right now, there are still a few people who can enter Canada. And as you can see on your screen, a few of the examples or a few of the mentions that we have put up here. So, Canadian citizens, Canadian permanent residents, and protected persons can travel to Canada. And this also includes a foreign national who requires entry for an essential purpose and will be exempt from the currently imposed travel restrictions. So what are the exemptions to the travel restrictions? Let's talk about some of those. Basically, what the travel restrictions say is that all or any temporary residents who are planning to travel to Canada, they need to demonstrate that they are traveling to Canada for an essential purpose. And what do we mean by essential? Essential basically means that someone who has reasons for traveling to Canada, which are non-discretionary, as well as non-optional. So emergency orders made under the Quarantine Act do not permit people to travel to Canada for optional or discretionary purposes. So that would be, say, someone is wanting to travel to Canada for tourism or recreation or any sort of entertainment. So, are there any exemptions to these particular restrictions? Yes, there are. And who are exempt? There are some temporary foreign workers and some students, some approved permanent residents, and potentially some visitors looking to reunite with immediate family members already in Canada. So, these are the people who are or might be exempt given their particular situation, who might be exempt to travel to Canada. However, an important thing to note here is that visitors will need an authorization letter to travel to Canada if family in Canada is not a Canadian or a PR. And students and workers will not require this authorization letter. So, what about the travel restrictions that have been imposed on students, and what are the exemptions to this? So, as you all no, not all students will be able to travel to Canada as per the current travel restrictions. So, what do you have to do in order to be exempt to travel? In order to be exempt to travel to Canada, you must be in possession of either a study permit visa, which was issued to you on or before March 18, 2020, or you need to have a port of entry letter of introduction, which indicates that your study permit was approved on or before March 18, 2020. However, either one of these is not the only documentation or proof that you need to share in order to be exempt to travel to Canada. A very important thing to note is that, and which is equally as important as either the study permit or the letter of introduction, is that you must be able to demonstrate that it is essential for you to travel to Canada. So, for example, if you have to be in Canada to attend in person classes, or if you are already in the middle of your program of study and need to return to it, then you might be considered as an exemption. You can demonstrate this by providing a recently dated letter from your designated learning institute, and that explains why you physically need to be in Canada for the fall semester. So, for those of you who might be wondering, what if I have a visa which was issued to me before March 18, but my university or college has declared that they will have online classes till 31st of December 2020 at least, you are not part of this exemption because your reason to travel to Canada is not considered essential in this case. And as mentioned earlier, we will not be providing any travel authorization letters for students. So all you need to travel is your visa or your port of entry letter of introduction and evidence of your essential need to travel. So please keep this in mind. And the documents must be provided to the airline at the time of boarding and to the Canadian Border Security Agency officer once you reach your port of entry in Canada. And failure to do so may result in you being denied boarding of your flight or being forced to return from Canada at your own expense. So please remember the clause about essential travel to Canada. So let's now look
Anindita,
at.
sorry to interrupt. Anindita, can you just, your slides aren't moving. If you can please fix that. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Elena, if you don't mind, would you be okay to move the slides?
I've actually been moving them, but it seems that it's taking from your screen. So what I see on my screen is not what everyone else is seeing.
So I think now they have moved to you. So do you mind trying to move them once? I think we need to be on slide number 7. Are
Go
you
ahead.
able to? Yeah, I think we're at the slide number 7 after this. Okay. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Elena. Sorry for the disruption, everyone. So, talking about processing changes as a result of this entire COVID-19 pandemic. So, we do understand that you are aware of recent changes which have taken place and processing related disruptions or disturbances which have occurred because of the onset of the pandemic. So what have these changes been and how have they impacted you, or how have they impacted the entire study permit processing? So the recently introduced measures address applications that have been submitted in full. And what we're trying to do now is, it is our main priority, which says that all visa applications need to be processed in time for the fall 2020 semester. And to do this, we need your help by submitting your application as early as possible and submitting all of the required documents as soon as possible. You would also be aware by now that visa application centers all over India are currently still closed, and this means that we are unable to accept any paper application. So one of the biggest impacts to this is that your application will only have to be online, and that is the only way we are accepting applications as of now. We are also aware of many service disruptions in addition to VACs being closed. We understand that panel physicians are operating with very limited capacity in certain places and not at all in a few others, which means that you might take longer to get your medical test or exam appointment and complete it. We also know that businesses and schools remain closed. So for a lot of you, it might be a situation where you are still awaiting your results and results from your colleges or your schools, and that's why you are still awaiting for your final transcripts. However, all of that being said, we would like to mention that we will not refuse any applications for non-compliance or failure to submit the requested documents at this time. This means that you do not have to worry about the deadlines specified in the request letter sent to you. So the primary deadlines, what we're talking about in this case, are your medicals and your biometric submission at visa application centers. However, one thing that you need to note is that we will not be able to complete the processing of your application until all required and requested documents have been received. So it is in your favor to submit these documents to us as soon as possible and as soon as you can have access to all the documents that you need to submit for your application. So, however, like I said, we have limitations on the panel physicians' working capacity right now. We have back closures, but there are 3 documents which are not part of these exceptions, and they must be submitted in order for you to first even get started with the application process. So these are your application form. And you do not have an application unless you complete our official IRCC study permit application form. And you have to submit it as, which is one of your main documents as part of your application kit. You also have to submit your visa application fee, which includes both your study permit processing fee as well as your biometric fee, and your letter of acceptance, which you have received from your institute in Canada. This is absolutely mandatory for you to submit with your application. One thing to note is that we, of course, cannot physically issue any visas until visa application centers across the country are open, because we have no mechanism for a two-way transmission of passports between us and the client and the visa office right now. What we are, however, trying to attempt to do is we are trying to return all passports for any existing paper files which we had received before the whole lockdown situation in India had happened. And we understand that this is an important identity document, so we are uh, doing our best to return these passports to the concerned people. Any documents mailed directly to our offices will be returned to the sender. So if you're trying to send anything to us right now, please do not attempt to send your passport directly to us, and please wait for the visa application centers to reopen. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so as mentioned earlier, we have new temporary processing related changes. And what are these changes? So the recently introduced measures address applications which have not yet received approval as of March 18th. And what are these measures? So we need complete study permit applications, and they will be prioritized. So the ones which we already had with us will be prioritized. And this means that the application which contains the forms, the fees, and the application fees, the medicals, the biometrics, the letter of acceptance from the institute, and all the other required supporting documents. If your program of study will qualify you for a postgraduate work permit, which is more commonly known as a PGWP, and part of your course, which will be the fall 2020 semester, has already been moved to an online format because of the pandemic, then the time that you spent on the online portion while outside of Canada will still be counted towards time on your PGWP. However, an important thing to note here is that the online portion must be 50% or less of your entire program of study. This means you will still need to complete a minimum half of your program in Canada for all of that time to count towards your PGWP. And a very important change in the new processing policy is the next thing, which is the two-stage approval process, which has come into effect very recently. This has basically been brought into effect to provide some breathing room for students who are not yet able to provide biometrics or medicals, but have classes starting in the fall of 2020. So what is this new two-stage process of approval? So in this stage, or in this process, the new temporary process, the first stage is the approval in principle, which also is known as AIP. This essentially means that the eligibility assessment of your application will be assessed here. So what? So if you receive an AIP approval, your online course time will count towards time for your PGWP. So it means that in order to start your online courses, or in order to be eligible for the PGWP, you need to submit your application, and the approval that you will get in this stage, which is the first stage, is the approval in principle. This means that you do not need to wait for a visa to be issued physically in order for you to start your classes or to be eligible for the PGWP. The stage 2 is the part which refers to the admissibility and the final decision of your application. And in cases of approvals, this is the part which results in a physical issuance of visa. One thing to note is that an approval or an AIP approval in the first stage is not a guarantee of a visa. Stage 2 includes admissibility decisions. So basically, you may be refused a visa despite having an AIP because you have failed your medical exam. So technically, stage 2 looks at things like criminality and admissibility. So these are the things which will be assessed during the second stage of your processing, including your biometrics and also your medicals. So let's discuss this in more detail in the next slide. So can we move on, please? Okay, so what does approval in principle mean? Approval in principle basically applies to applications who have not yet received a final decision as of March 18, 2020. As mentioned earlier, it refers to the eligibility assessment of your application. And what it essentially means is that even though you are still missing your medicals or biometrics, you may still be able to receive an approval in principle on your application. The criteria for this assessment, however, has not changed, and neither have the requirements or how an officer makes that assessment. So, though we have introduced a two-stage processing, we have not made any changes to your eligibility requirements or the criteria on how your applications will be processed. So, you still need to show proof that you are a genuine student and that you have. And how do you do that? That you need to demonstrate the academic and the language capability through the submissions of your previous academic transcripts and also your IELTS or TOEFL scores. You need to have been accepted by a designated learning institute in Canada, and it also means that you must have submitted a valid letter of acceptance along with your application form. And you need to show that you have sufficient funds to pay for your studies and sustain yourself during your studies in Canada. So this means that you have to have submitted your financial evidence of liquid funds to pay for your entire duration of studies in Canada. This, of course, includes stuff like your tuition, your transportation, your living expenses, and anything else that you might need in order to, sustain your life while you are in Canada for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, or 4 years. So the entire funds need to be shown to us when you are putting in your application. Moving on to the next slide. As mentioned earlier, nothing has changed in terms of the requirements that we need from you in terms of documentation and the type of documents that we need from you when you are submitting your application or your study permit application. So as you see, the student direct stream still has all the requirements in place and they are still pretty much valid. So we will definitely need to see a letter of acceptance from a DLI, and we will have to see IELTS test results demonstrating a band of 6 or higher, and that needs to be in each of the 4 modules and not just 1 or 2 modules. A student needs to have paid the entire first year's tuition in full. A student needs to have gotten made and submit proof of a guaranteed investment certificate worth 10,000 Canadian dollars, which you need to submit along with your application, and you need to add your secondary and post-secondary school transcripts. And for those of you who are headed to Quebec, you also need to submit the certificate of acceptance for the Quebec University. So this essentially remains the requirement for student direct stream. So for the non-student direct stream or the general stream of study permit, again, the documentation remains the same. Your letter of acceptance is, of course, what the most mandatory thing, which will be part of your application. Your IELTS or TOEFL test results, evidence of your financial ability to sustain yourself in Canada, your transcripts, and again, if you're bound towards Quebec, then we also need to see the certificate of acceptance. One tip which will apply for students who want to apply whether through SDS or non-SDS is that you ideally should include a letter to explain why you chose your program of study and evidence of what your financial plan is to pay for all of your subsequent years while you are studying in Canada. So as you see, I'm reiterating again, the requirements in terms of your documentation remains pretty much the same. Moving on to the next slide. So we said that in the first stage of processing, or in the new temporary changes that we have brought to the processing of study permit applications, we are looking at your eligibility, and we've mentioned that in the second stage, what we're looking at is your admissibility. So what does admissibility ideally entail? As mentioned earlier, it definitely entails your biometrics, your immigration medical exam information. You also need to answer all questions of your application truthfully and do not hide or change any information on your application. So in case you have previous visa refusals for Canada or for any other country, you need to provide information for all of that and be truthful about anything regarding your personal information, which the application form asks of you. And of course, another very important thing is that you need to submit authentic documentation. So whether it is your IELTS test scores that you're submitting, your medical results, or your school transcripts, everything that you're submitting needs to be authentic and genuine. Moving on to the next slide. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes, I think we're at the correct slide now. So this is something which we think is very important because students in India are mostly eligible to apply for the student direct stream, and they are interested to apply for the student direct stream. So we are just reiterating all of this once again, that the requirements in terms of documentation for a student direct stream have not changed, and they remain as what you see in front of your screen. What we realize is that due to the service disruptions, you may not be able to submit all of the required documents to qualify under this stream. Examples of this may be upfront medical examination reports, your IELTS results, or your GSE. If you're unable to submit a required document, for example, your medicals, your application will be moved to the non-SDS stream. So this is something that you need to keep in mind, and this will apply in the current scenario. Moving on to the next slide. So, something which is very attractive and obviously very important and held in a lot of priority by a lot of international students who are Canada bound is the fact that international students can work while they are studying in Canada. So As you know, if you are an international student, you can work in Canada for up to 20 hours during course time and more than 20 hours during holidays. But there have been new things which have been put in place because of the onset of the pandemic. And what are they? So if a student has switched to part-time studies or had to take a break in studies, whether it was a spring break or something that was cancelled due to the pandemic, they may still continue to work on and off campus, provided that they were previously a full-time student and already authorized to work on or off campus pre-pandemic. And for those of you who are planning to do off-campus work, the maximum limit is still 20 hours per week during academic session and full-time during regular academic breaks. For students who are in essential services, and this would ideally include students who are in the health sector, they can work for more than 20 hours per week up until August 31st. So this was something which was announced by the government of Canada after the outbreak of the pandemic. So this is also something which is currently temporarily in place. To qualify for this, they need a valid study permit. They need to be currently in an academic session. They need to be authorized to work on or off campus, and they must be working in an essential job. And for those of you who are not yet in Canada, a very common question that we are very often asked is if you can go to Canada and work those maximum 20 hours per week while taking online classes for the fall semester. So the short answer to that is no, because we would like to remind you of what we have. I would like to remind you of what we have discussed in the earlier slides regarding what students need to demonstrate in order to travel to Canada. So first of all, your travel to Canada will not be considered essential, which is the most important part. So because your travel itself is not considered essential, so the rule or the stipulation for you being able to work 20 hours does not apply in this case. Unless your physical presence is required for your studies in the fall semester, it is not essential for you to travel to Canada at this time. Additionally, only students with visas issued on or before March 18th can travel to Canada under the current travel restrictions as mentioned earlier. Moving on to the next slide. What about authorized leave during studies? So this part essentially refers to students who have already begun their classes in Canada. And there are a number of reasons right now why a particular university or college may authorize leave during studies. It could be strikes or a family emergency or a medical emergency. To be considered actively pursuing studies, your authorized leave must not exceed 150 days from your first day of leave. Failure to do so means you have not complied with the conditions of your study permit and may result in your removal from Canada. If for whatever reason you require leave for longer than 150 days, you should change your status from student to visitor. And the forms and instructions on how to do that can be found on our canada.ca immigration website. One thing which is very important to note is that you cannot study elsewhere or work and during your authorized leave period. So please note this thing. In case a DLI may have to close permanently as a consequence of the pandemic, what the student should do, the student should either enroll in a new program of study with another DLI or change his or her status from a student to a visitor, or they need to leave Canada. For the purpose of assessing if a student is enrolled and actively pursuing their studies, any time taken to transition to a new DLI and program, change status or leave Canada should not exceed 150 days from the date the school closed. So please remember this important number of days, which is 150. Moving on to the next slide. So now, of course, with the introduction of the online format to a lot of the courses which were supposed to happen physically, there seems to be a lot of confusion regarding what is considered distance learning and what is considered online courses. Distance learning are always offered only remotely and even under normal circumstances. So it's not because of COVID that they have changed into distance learning. The student went into the course right from the beginning, knowing that this would be a distance learning course, meaning that they need to pursue the course online from anywhere in the world, which could also be their home country. The online courses that we are referring to, especially for the fall 2020 semester, would normally have been offered in person physically to the students. However, they have been moved to the online format due to the pandemic, and the institutes, the universities and colleges intend to return to full physical in-person classes post this whole scenario settles down a bit. So that is the clear distinction between online courses and distance learning. Those taking online courses for a program of study, which would normally qualify them for a PGWP, can have that time counted towards the PGWP, even if they have not begun their studies in Canada. Students can complete 50% of their program online if they cannot travel to Canada sooner. For students who have already begun their program of study in Canada, switching from full-time status to part-time status due to the pandemic will not affect their PGWP eligibility. Note that this applies only to the winter, spring, and summer semesters. For the fall 2020 semester, it is expected that students take on a full online course load in order for that time to be counted towards their PGWP. So that was the bit about online and distance learning courses and how that impacts your PGWP status. Moving on. A little bit information about fraud awareness and how you can protect yourself. So we understand that in the Indian market, you students usually take help from agents or education consultants. So please always be very sure of who you are consulting, because some of the times, and we do come across this a lot of times, students are defrauded and they only realize this once something bad has happened, and that's when they write to us. So you need to be careful right from the beginning. If you want to take help in with regards to your visa application from someone who you can trust and who is genuine, you should always go to the ICCRC website. So if you scan the barcode on your slide, you will actually be able to go to the website directly. This is the website for Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council, and the people who are there are authorized representatives, meaning that they are legally allowed and legally qualified to represent you for your visa application and also help you entirely put together your visa application. So that is something that you can always go for. Another thing that you need to be careful is that there are a lot of fraudulent websites and scams which keep doing their rounds on social media and also through WhatsApp. So please make sure that whatever you are reading is actually genuine information. If you are unsure about something, please always go to our official website, official Facebook page, and figure out if that information has come from there. If you are still not able to find out, you can always inbox us on social media, on Facebook or Twitter, and we will be able to let you know or direct you where you need to go in order to verify your information and protect yourself from fraud. So just like social media, there is also stuff which keeps happening online. And in terms of emails, so sometimes you receive email scams, and you also receive fraudulent telephone calls from people who are trying to defraud you. So please be very careful when you want to take help from someone with regards to your application. What we always try and say is that the application itself is not complicated. If you follow the steps right, once you go on our website, it is a very straightforward application to fill. And all you need to do is have all your personal information with you, and you will be able to fill up all the details that it has asked for. Moving on to the next slide. So, what do you do as and when you are able to travel to Canada, and what are the things that you need to be careful about? The airline that you travel with will require the following documents from you: your passport, your valid study permit visa issued on or before March 18, and documents to demonstrate that your travel to Canada is essential. Additionally, you will also be required to pass a health check performed by the airline officials just before your flight. So if you are showing any COVID-19 symptoms, you may also be denied boarding. If you are approved for boarding, note that you must wear a non-medical mask or face covering upon arrival in Canada. So this is what you need to take care when you are boarding the flight or going to plan your travel to Canada. Let's now look at what you need to do once you land in Canada in terms of quarantining yourself. So Canada has in place currently a mandatory quarantine for travelers, and how does that look like? So all travelers who land in Canada must undergo a health checkup upon their arrival. It is mandatory that all passengers arriving in Canada must self-quarantine themselves for 14 days. And this means that you need to have your plan in place before you decide to travel to Canada. You also need to confirm and provide evidence that you have a suitable place to quarantine yourself, and which means that you have to provide an address and explain how you intend to self-quarantine if you are living at a location where there will be other people as well. Also, you have to explain how you intend to respect that quarantine plan, meaning how do you intend to receive essential items such as food, water, etc. If you do not have a viable quarantine plan, we suggest that you do not travel to Canada until you have one, because failure to comply with the current quarantine regulations has consequences, which include a fine of up to 750,000 Canadian dollars, 6 months in prison, and you might be deemed inadmissible and removed from Canada and banned from entering the country for a year. So rather than taking all the risks, we would recommend that as and when you decide to travel and are able to travel, you have your quarantine plan in place, because you will need to share it with the Canadian Border Security people at the port of entry, or anyone official who might ask you for that during the course of your travel. So I think that actually brings us towards the end of the presentation. So moving on to the last slide, where we will be sharing details of our social media handles and also our website. So the main important website, which is the official Government of Canada website that you need to refer to, is www.canada.ca/immigration. There is also an India-specific page where you can find information on fraud, not only in English, but also in Hindi and Punjabi. Not only fraud, but also how to apply for a visa. That information can also be found in Hindi and Punjabi on this particular India-specific website. So if you look at the barcode on your slide and if you scan it, it will download on your smartphone, whether it is an Android or an iOS phone. It will download in your smartphone a PDF document, which is a step-by-step guide on how you can apply online. So that will be very helpful for you when you start putting together your application and have to finally submit your application. So while we are on this slide, please feel free to go ahead and scan this barcode and download the document. For all updated relevant information specific for India, please visit us on Facebook and also on Twitter. The handle for both is Canada in India. We also have a YouTube channel where we have fraud awareness videos. So if you want, please go on the YouTube channel and have a look at those videos, because that will also give you an idea of what you need to make yourself aware of in terms of fraud. That brings me to the end of my presentation in terms of sharing the information, and I am sure we have a lot of questions which have been coming in. So now I would like to hand it over to Elena Balboa, who is the Student and Worker Unit Manager for us in India. So she will be addressing your questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anandita. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, and thank you for your patience. I'm going to go through the question and answer section and try to go through as many of the questions as possible. So I note that there's 772 questions and growing, so clearly we won't be able to answer all of them, but hopefully there's a lot of duplicates and you can derive the answer to your question in case we don't get to it from other questions being asked. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top. Question. I applied my visa on March 18 and completed my biometric on 20. Medical and biometric are updated in my visa profile. Now my profile is in review. So when can I expect the result or outcome? So right now we are working on the two-stage process, as Anandita explained. You should be receiving your AIP letter shortly. Because note that this process is quite new, so we are slowly working through the list of all cases that have had eligibility approved, and hopefully you will get your AIP letter soon. In terms of visa issuance, we cannot issue any visas right now because VACs are closed. There's no way for us to have a two-way transmission of your passport for us to issue you your visa. So in terms of getting a result, at this point, we have no ETA on that. We will not be finalizing cases until likely when the VACs reopen. Next question, which seems like a follow-up question because the question is, when is VACs reopening? So at this point, we have no ETA on VACs reopening. However, we are monitoring the situation closely and continuously analyzing when would it be safe enough to reopen the VACs. So at this time, VACs remain closed. Please follow us on our social media. And you can also check the VFS website for updates on when reopening might be scheduled. Next question. Is PTE accepted for study permits? So yes, we can accept PTE results. Keep in mind that if you do submit PTE results, you must give us online access to your results. If you fail to provide this, your application may be refused. Next question. I am submitting non-SDS student visa today with all documents, including police clearance certificate and medicals completed. As it's complete, will it be given priority and will I get my level 1 AIP approval for study permit for fall 2020 by 9th September 2020? So provided that you have all of the other documents, supporting documents we need to make that AIP decision, yes. And what are those other AIP documents? So you need your letter of acceptance, you need your evidence of funds, you need to send us a motivation letter, tell us why you want to study this program, give us your financial plan for how you intend to pay for the remaining years of your school. So all of the other documentation we mentioned in our slides, as long as all of those are provided, we can get you your AIP. Next question, can we expect study permit AIP by the end of this month for all students who applied before August 1st? So this all depends on whether or not documents are on file to make that AIP decision, right? So for example, one of the documents that seem to be missing from a lot of applications are letters of acceptances that are actually valid. So we had a number of applications where the student intended to start studies for the spring or summer semester. Those dates have passed, yet the LOA on their application has not been updated. So until we get those updated LOAs, we will not be able to AIP those applications. So really, as long as all of the documents we need are on file, yes, we can make that AIP decision. But if there are items missing, then the AIP will remain pending. Next question. I submitted my application on 28 May 2020 and waiting to provide my biometrics. My IELTS score expired on 28 July 2020. My visa decision is delaying due to pandemic situation and VFS closure. Will this cause any problems for my visa approval since my IELTS was valid when I applied for my visa? Do I need to rewrite the exam again? No, we will accept your results. Next question. In SDS, there are no updates after March. In SDS category, please suggest when we can expect decisions, as other countries are getting AIP decisions now. But we are just deferring our intakes May to September and now September to Jan if we don't get decisions. So all of the IRCC offices who are working on India caseload files are working very hard to get you your AIP decisions as soon as possible. We are striving to get all of those AIP decisions before the fall 2020 start. So not only is the New Delhi office working on this, but also sister offices in Canada, including some of our evacuated staff who are working in cells in Canada to process these applications. So we understand the need for these AIP decisions so that you feel more confident in investing in a Canadian education, especially for the fall 2020 semester. While right now we can't give you an exact time frame of when all of these decisions will be made, we are working very hard to get these to you before the start of the fall 2020 semester. Next question. Hi everyone, it was declared by IRCC that they resumed processing of study permits from July 1st, but we haven't heard of any visa approval status. It'd be very kind if you can give expected timeline as roughly a month from class start. So as I mentioned, because VACs remain closed, there's no way for us to issue visas. So hence this two-stage process. So please be satisfied that the AIP letters will soon be forthcoming, and that once you get your AIP letter, you should be confident in moving forward with your study plan. Next question. Permit 2 months ago through SDS route. However, the status of my application continues to indicate as submitted. My course will commence 9 August 2020. Is IRCC consider fast-tracking applications for universities commencing fall intake in August 2020? So, like I said, we're working through all of the applications as quickly as possible. We can only make an AIP decision for applications where all of the documents are there for AIP. In terms of the two-stage process, as long as your application was submitted before the start of your classes and you are able to get an AIP at a later date, all of that time will count towards your postgraduate work permit if that is the concern. Next question. I updated my LOA with September 03 in the CIC website. Now my college has changed its reopening date to September 23rd, so I need to update my LOA. So yes, ideally, only because in case there are questions at the border or by the airline, which go through our border services agency, it would be good to ensure that we have accurate details of your program. If you choose not to provide us with an updated LOA, you may be requested to provide this to the port of entry officer anyways. So just make sure that the documents you have are accurate because it's to your benefit. Next question. New rules for PGWP. Can you please explain in brief that how 50% courses will count as subjects or as semester? So it's semester, and it's not 50% of the semester, it's 50% of your entire program. So if the fall 2020 semester is online, the fall 2020 semester must be a full-time course load. Part-time course load will not count towards your PGWP. It must be a full-time course load. A full-time course load for that semester, then the amount of that semester will count towards your PGWP. Next question. People applied in month of Feb and are still waiting for decisions in SDS. There are no updates after March in SDS category. Please suggest when we can expect decisions. I think this question was asked already, and I've already answered this. Next question. When will VAC reopen? This has also already been answered. If VACs are not open, how will IRCC address the problem? What's the alternative? Are placed so that visa process will begin? So like I mentioned, most of the programs for fall 2020 are online. With the AIP process, any time that you spend on studies on a full-time course load will count towards your PGWP. You can start your studies in India or Nepal or wherever you may be, and confidently move through your program, knowing that all the time that you're investing will count towards PGWP later. Right now, we do not have an ETA on when VACs will reopen. So, and frankly, with the state of the pandemic and, Canada is still recovering, India still hasn't peaked. These are all issues that are contributing to this VAC closure. These are some things that we just have to work through, and these are currently the solutions we have to help you gain some confidence in investing in a Canadian education. Next question. PTE is accepted or not because of lots of students getting mail that submit original IELTS or CELPIP language proficiency results, and they have submitted PTE results along with verification details. I'm not quite sure what the question is, but as I mentioned, we can accept PTE as long as you provide us with online access to your results. Next question. I have an offer for 2021 intake. I will be applying for visa in August 2020, but my IELTS is expiring in September 2020. Do I need to retake it? No, we will accept it. Next question. Is this possible that we can travel to Canada near January? So at this time, the current travel restrictions are in place, and they're in place until August 31st. I do not know if they will be canceled as of September 1st, if they will be extended, or they will be amended. We will just have to wait. So I cannot make a prediction of what travel restrictions, if any, might exist like closer to January. Next question. PTE score verification. We need to submit login credentials, link PTE to IELTS conversation table only, or we need to submit any other thing too. So for PTE's results, through the PTE system, you can send your results to IRCC. Like that's what you need to do with your results. And then once you send it through the system to IRCC, PTE allows us to view those results. That's what you need to do. Next question. Is it true that people can start study online even if they don't have AIP? If yes, is this kind of indication that all fall applicants will not receive decision before fall starts? So you can frankly start your program anytime you want to. It all depends on what you want out of your program. If all you want is a postgraduate work permit, then if you want a stronger guarantee, not a complete guarantee, then yes, wait for AIP. But technically, if you submit your study permit application before September 15, and you get an AIP later, your fall 2020 semester will still count towards your postgraduate work permit. Next question. If a student has overall 65 in PTE, which is equivalent 7.0 bands to IELTS, so he is eligible for SDS category? No. SDS category strictly only accepts IELTS results. They do not accept any other type. If you choose to submit language test results from anything but IELTS, you will be moved to the non-SDS stream. Next question. Is two-stage approval process applicable to SDS applicants who had completed their application along with medicals and biometrics? Yes, absolutely. So the two-stage approval isn't stream specific. It applies to all applications that are currently in our inventory. This is essentially trying to make up for the fact that the VACs are closed and we can't issue visas, right? And also to make up for the fact that there are certain things that you can't submit for your application to be concluded, like medicals or biometrics. In this question, they're saying that medicals and biometrics are already in. And because the VACs are still closed, we can't issue you that visa. Hence, we're going to be providing you an AIP letter so that you have confidence that you will likely get a visa later. Next question. Student visa on January 2020 and is processing at New Delhi office, and I haven't heard about my final decision yet. I've provided new LOA as applied for spring and now deferred to fall, and my course starts September 8. When can I expect my decision? So I've answered this question previously, that we are working very hard to try to get through all of the applications before the fall 2020 semester. Next question. If students enroll in a hybrid course for fall 2020 and in-person presence is mandatory, then what to do? Study permit pending, VFS closed, stamping pending, travel restrictions, kindly provide a clear solution. So the current travel restrictions in place until August 31st, only persons with visas issued before on or before March 18, 2020 will be able to travel to Canada. So if you've submitted your application and, as you mentioned in your question, stamping pending, you cannot travel to Canada anytime right now. Perhaps if the travel restrictions are lifted later this fall, you might be able to travel. Next question. My college has listed my course as hybrid, so I would need to be present in Canada to attend to my classes. I'm also waiting for my visa to be approved, so I've already answered this. It's the same question from the previous one. Next question. In case of an online semester, if I receive a reject for first stage study permit approval post the semester starts, how would that affect the length of my PGWP, and could I still continue my program? What would be the best scenario to defer? So you're saying that you are rejected at the first stage. So if you're rejected at the first stage, your application is refused. Like, that's the bottom line. We stop processing if you fail stage 1. So it's up to, like, you can decide if you want to still continue with your program because you're still learning something new, you're doing some self-improvement. Like, these are good things too, right? So it's up to you on what you want and expect out of this education. It's up to you to decide if you want to continue or not. Next question. Students who've submitted their files for student visa online in March, when will they get the results? So I've already answered this question. We're working hard to get you all of your AIP decisions as soon as possible. Next question. There will be any changes in deferring intakes or changing programs due to this COVID? So in terms of deferring intakes, like, you need to speak to your DLI because IRCC has no jurisdiction or control over this. Next question. I want to know how much time Canadian government will take to give first principle approval to international students. So I believe that some letters are already going out. We're going to try to get you the AIP letters as soon as possible. Next question. I have studied in Canada from January 2017 to May 2019 in one of the reputed University of Windsor. and this question is not finished. Okay, next question. When will IRCC issuing the AIP visa for the fall intake students which they said would be given first priority as of now, since studies will start very soon within the next 3 or 4 weeks. So we're working hard. We've already begun sending some of these letters out. We will try to get all of your letters out as soon as possible. Next question. I have some concerns like AIPs being issued in Philippines, Vietnam, when will it start in India? Secondly, students with full file submitted will receive final results. Will a plethora of files result negative trend as said or not? So, AIP letters are already being sent out. We hope to get everyone's AIP letters out as soon as possible. So please be patient. For the second part of the question, will student full files submitted receive final results? As I said, we cannot issue visas because the VACs are closed. So if your application is to be approved, you will not get a visa until VACs reopen. Now, in terms of refusals, because there's no need for your passport for us to let you know that your application has been refused, you may receive your refusal letter through your online account or via email. So you can check that for updates on your cases. So if you don't hear from us, your case may likely be waiting for visa approval. Otherwise, your application may be, you may receive a refusal letter soon on your application. Next question. I submitted an application on 7 July 2020. I've submitted all documents required under SDS, including medical, only left biometrics, but VACs aren't open. Will I be able to receive AIP before my class in September? Yes. If you have provided all of the other required documents, yes. Next question. I have 2 rejection for visitor visa. I want to know, will this affect my second stage approval or will it be examined in first stage? So this will factor in the second stage. And if you've had 2 previous visa refusals, as long as you've declared them on your application and that the reasons for those refusals aren't something serious. So, for example, if you were previously refused from the U.S. because you are a criminal or a terrorist or a spy, these are things that will likely get you refused for Canada as well. However, if the reason for refusal was related to eligibility, for example, for the U.S. they didn't believe that you were a genuine student, or they didn't think you had enough money to attend school. These are things that are fixable in your application for Canada, and you can address them there. So that shouldn't factor. Next question. Will everyone receive an AIP before class start in September? That is our goal, and we are working very hard to do this. Next question. When is ban on flights uplifting and Canada is opening border for international students? So the current travel ban is currently in place until August 31st. We will see closer to that date whether or not there will be changes to this travel ban. At this time, I do not know. Next question. Please elaborate by when applicants that have submitted a complete application, including biometrics and medical, will hear on their stage 1 approvals. We submitted in March, have not heard from IRCC, while those other countries applied in June and got AIP. So letters are already being submitted, sent to you. So just be patient and please continue to check your online accounts or your email for these letters to come through. Next question. What about those people who have research-based courses? In order to complete their thesis, they would be required to be in Canada physically to carry out their research. Also, some people are given 100% scholarship, and in order to access that, they have to have a bank account and SIN number, which they can't get if they are not in Canada. These are some real issues that students are facing. Can you please clarify? As to if these students can come under exemption to travel, we have support letter also. So if there is number 1, travel restriction. If your visa was not issued on or before March 18, there's just no way for you to travel despite what your circumstances may be. We have no control over this. Number 2, if there is a valid reason for you to be physically in Canada, for example, the research you need to carry requires your physical presence in Canada, then if you met the first part, meaning you had a visa issued on or before March 18, and you have documentation from your DLI to demonstrate that your physical presence is required for these reasons, then yes, you should be able to travel. Next question. What is the internet speed we required for online classes? Check with your institution. I do not know how much bandwidth they expect you to use. Next question. Do these new rules, regulations, and methods of getting student visa apply to winter 2021 intake too? No, they only apply to fall 2020. There is a potential that they could be extended to winter 2021. At this time, it's only restricted to fall 2020. Next question. Hello, my 50% online study is going to complete in this August, and my visa is also going to expire this August. My college is not giving me a travel letter. What should I do without a letter? I can't travel, and what about my visa? So your college is likely not giving you a travel letter because your fall 2020, your September class is also online. This is what I'm guessing. So you need to discuss this with your college of whether or not you're going to defer so that you can do the other 50% in Canada, or you can like this doesn't prevent you from doing your complete program here. Just that if your goal is to get that postgraduate work permit, then this is something you have to think about. So, and that's completely your decision. We do not advise, we're not giving any advice in this matter. Next question. Many students submitted a completed application including biometrics back in months of Feb and March and haven't gotten updates. Some students already deferred their classes from May to September as they couldn't secure a visa in time. And this question is unfinished. Next question. My course for September intake would start on 7 September and I applied for study permit a month back. So what would be the processing time? There are no current processing times because we have limited service at the mission. However, we have sister offices in Canada also working very hard to help us with our workload and to try to get you your AIP decisions before the start of the fall 2020 semester. Next question. Can a student apply for visa for winter 2021 now, or do we need to wait until 15 September as is the deadline for fall intake? No, you can apply for any visa as early as you like. Next question. I submitted my student file on March 3rd and did not see any update in GC Key account. My class starts September 3rd. What should I do? Please be patient. We're trying to get through all of the applications and hopefully you'll hear from us soon about your AIP. According to VFS, reopening depends on directives from local government and client consulates. Indian government has given go-ahead since VFS centers are open for other countries, so when will Canadian High Commission allow the reopening of VFS? I do not have an ETA of when the Canadian VFS or VAX will reopen. We are monitoring the situation and you should check the VFS website for updates on reopening. Next question. I need a suggestion when January intake students apply for visa. What's the ideal time for it? Apply anytime and frankly, as soon as possible. Next question. I applied for study permit through online SDS on March 16. My application is a complete application. I have classes starting for upcoming weeks. Will my application get processed within upcoming weeks? So for AIP, yes, we're trying to get through as many applications as possible so that you get your AIP letter. In terms of visa issuance, and not until VAX reopen. Next question. What if we don't get our study permit before September 15, then what will be the next step? So as long as your application is submitted before September 15, you will qualify for this two-stage process, and that even if you get an AIP later down the line, if you start your fall 2020 semester online, it will still count towards your PGWP. Next question. It's been 100+ days since we applied for visa. We hope IRCC would issue a study permit soon. So as I mentioned, VAX are closed. We cannot issue visas at this time. Next question. If I apply for September intake before August 10, do you think it will be processed on time? And will I get principal in approval before the college starts? So please apply as soon as possible. Please don't wait until the last minute. It's to your benefit. The more time you give yourself, the better chance you have at getting your AIP before your classes start, if that's what you want. However, as I mentioned before, the current policy is if you submit your application before September 15, even if you get your AIP later down the line, it's okay. The fall 2020 semester will still count towards your postgraduate work permit. But here's the thing, like the sooner you get a response in your application, So say, for example, your application was refused because you forgot something, or you need to address something that was deficient in your application. If you applied early enough, you can at least reapply again and address that deficiency. But if you apply very last minute, you may not be able to refile before that September 15 deadline, and then you're stuck. So give yourself as much time as possible because it's to your benefit. Apply as soon as possible. Do not delay. Next question. Are SDS applications still processed quicker compared to regular applications? So ideally, yes. We are trying to process SDS applications as quickly as possible. Right now, because of the pandemic and lockdown restrictions and movement restrictions, whether here in India or in Canada, we have staffing limitations in operations. So really, that's the main reason why the processing times normally posted are inaccurate. But we are trying to get through as many applications as possible before the fall 2020 start. Next question. They didn't allow me to take because of fresh international arrival. Secondly, many institutions suspended summer intake because of ongoing pandemic and restrictions. My institution was also same list. My semester shifted from summer intake to fall. Again, there's there's no question in this, so I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Next, I have submitted my visa application on 25th June 2020, but till date I haven't received my AIP. So when will I get my AIP? There is no time frame. Please be patient. We are working hard to get you all the AIP decisions as soon as possible. Next question, did IRCC started processing SDS applications? Yes. Next question. I am a student. My father wants to accompany me for travel. So how can he do that? Are visitor visas being processed? Will he be allowed to enter Canada? Please guide. No. So yes, visitor visas are being processed, but however, they are restricted from traveling to Canada anytime soon. So number one, we can't issue visas because of the VAC closure. Number two, under current travel restrictions, he won't be able to come to Canada anyways. So he'll have to wait until travel restrictions are lifted and VACs reopen if he wants to travel. Next, if my course is hybrid for the first semester, are there any changes of my visa being rejected? We won't refuse an application because one semester is a hybrid semester. This will not factor in our decision making. And frankly, whether or not a course is online or in person also doesn't really factor in our decision making. We understand that this pandemic has sort of disrupted the fall 2020 semester and frankly, almost all the semesters of this year. So whether it's online, hybrid, or in person does not factor in our decision making. Next question. As it's seen, there are no updates on visa approvals for any Indian student after March 18, whereas students from neighboring countries are receiving approvals. Students in Sri Lanka receiving approvals as well as stamping are done as VFS there are operational. VFS in Pakistan are operational. Students from Bangladesh have started receiving approvals under AIP first stage. Why is there no update for student visa in India? Because most of the country is still under lockdown and the COVID situation is still deteriorating. Containment zones continue to increase daily. Need I go on? Next, VFS in Mumbai have not yet started, but has started all other countries except Canada. Why is that? When can we expect it to start? So we are monitoring the situation, and we do not have an ETA of when the reopening will happen. Please monitor the VFS website for reopening dates. Next question. Since 50% of the course can be completed from home without affecting PGWP, how is the 50% criteria applied to those enrolled in one-year master's program, viz. 1 term from home or 6 months from home country? That's 1 term from home, if it's a 2-term program. When will IRCC issue a visa who applied in Feb, when VACs reopen? Next question. I have already applied for study permit in June 2020. Would I be granted study permit? When VACs reopen, we can issue visas. Next. Want to check if I study online classes from my home country and work as full-time employee in a company. Will it affect my profile at time of application for PR? No. So basically, my relieving date and my course start date won't match. They'll overlap. Will this be an issue on my PR application? No. Next question. I have applied for visa in the month of June and still no updates. My classes will be beginning September. When will I get first stage approval? We're working hard to get those to you as soon as possible. Next question. My study permit got approved on March 3rd, 2020. My first term is fully remote and conducted in real time in Canada. So college provided me a arrival support letter to consider my travel as essential. So am I eligible to enter the borders? No, because your classes are still online. And if it's only about the time difference, so to us, this is not an essential reason to travel. An essential reason to travel is that your physical presence is required. Next, if we don't get visa before term start, then what will we do? Defer. Also, if drop date is passed, what will we do? This is up to you to decide if you want to continue with your program or defer and wait for your visa. But like I said, the AIP process, this two-stage process is in place to give you the confidence to continue with your fall 2020 semester online if you need to. Next. Yesterday, IRCC issued a guideline in which online studies considered as distance learning that does not count for PGWP. Please clarify. So it's not distance learning. So classes that are normally in person but have had to move online because of the pandemic, all of those classes, if they would normally qualify for a postgraduate work permit, will still qualify for a postgraduate work permit if they are now online. This is what this guideline is trying to say. The other type of distance learning is the type of courses or programs where even pre-pandemic, they were already online. Like there have never been in-person classes. It is those types of courses that will not count towards your postgraduate work permit. Next question. The visa before 18 March and I have all the required documents, paid my fee in GIC 8 months ago and I mortgaged my property, took a loan for higher studies from bank. I'm paying interest. Now I'm hopeless and depressed, need quick action. Yes, we understand. But like I said, we're working hard to get your AIP decision soon. Next question. Why are Indians not getting update and other country applicants getting update? So if you mean visas, it's because our VACs are still closed. Next question. Is PTE acceptable under SDS category? So I answered this. SDS is strictly IELTS only. Next question. With every communication with VFS centers in India, they state they are waiting for High Commission in India to open up. When does High Commission plan to send such a directive? When we deem it safe enough to reopen the VACs. Next question. Please mention time limit for processing completed applications. There is no time frame right now because we're working on limited capacity. But we are working hard to get these applications processed at least until the AIP stage. Next question. As my course has hybrid delivery format, my college has asked me to be physically present in Canada by August 27. Okay, so if you have a visa before March 18, yes, you could be eligible to travel. But if your visa has not yet been issued, then no, because you're still under travel restrictions. Next, can you please let me know if general IELTS is accepted for study permit? No. Next, what is the processing time for AIP? After AIP, how long will it take to get the visa? So processing time for AIP, there is no time frame, as I mentioned before, in terms of getting a visa when VACs reopen. Next. I have not obtained my visa yet, and even if I do, stamping a visa is difficult because of the situation of COVID-19 in India. What are my options to be able to attend the course this September? Do you need to be physically in Canada to attend, or is this only an online program? Because you have no visa yet, you're still under travel restrictions. So right now, you can't travel, like even if you did have physical classes to go to. Next. Will I be able to attend my course without deferral to the next academic semester? I'm not quite sure what you mean by this. Like, if you want to defer your semester, go ahead. This is your choice. We have nothing to do with this piece. Next, can student apply for Jan intake under two-stage process, or is it only September intake? It's only the September intake. Next, Some universities have allowed students to go for online classes without visa, but my question is, what if after starting the class they receive rejection from embassy? Can we still be able to apply the application? So not quite sure what that question is, but I think you're asking if this counts towards the PGWP. If you apply again, you can apply again, but because your application wasn't in play at the time you started those courses, they won't count towards your PGWP. Next question, what is the processing time for non-SDS file? There is no time frames at this time. Next, what about process for winter 2021? Is it similar to fall 2020? At this time, no. The current processes are only in play for fall 2020. Next, what should be the next steps and procedure for students with biometric medical clearance completed after March 18 and deferred enrollment for fall 2020? So, as we mentioned, there's a two-stage process. There are current travel restrictions. If they don't have a visa yet, they can't travel anyways. So your only option, if you really want to study for fall 2020, is an online program. Next. Keeping in mind how COVID-19 has thrown at everyone's well thought out timelines, please let me know if the following is going to be a problem. I submitted my SDS application 29 July. My IELTS will expire 11 August 2020. We'll still accept the IELTS results. Next. In case my IELTS results is expired before landing, do I need to give it again? No. Next. When can I receive my AIP? So I've already discussed this, hopefully as soon as possible. Next, if one applied for non-SDS permit in August first week of a university fall 2020, is there any possibility of getting approval before September first week? We are trying to get through all the applications as soon as possible. The two-stage process will apply to you, yes. Next, can we work full-time while studying in India? Because I need to serve 3 months notice period before my resignation. I cannot resign until I get AIP. You are in India, you can work as much as you want. In Canada, there are restrictions to working. But since you're not in Canada, you can do whatever you like. Next question. Students who got their visa before 18 March can travel despite online classes. No. You need to demonstrate that your physical presence is required for you to be in class, whether it's part-time or full-time in class, or only partial of the semester for hybrid programs. If your entire program is online, you will not be permitted to travel. Next, if student enroll in hybrid course for fall 2020 and in person, presence is mandatory, then what to do? Study permit pending, VFS closed, stamping pending. So I think I've already addressed this. Current travel restrictions are still in place. And if you did not receive your visa on or before March 18, you will not be able to travel. Next, is PT accepted for study permit? So I already mentioned this. Yes, we do. But you need to give us online access to your results. Next question, when will you start processing study permits? We're already processing. Next question, when will VFS reopen? Note ETA on this. Next question, my program has 4 terms with 9 courses, 3 courses per term, and last term is internship, how to manage 50% or more of studies in Canada. So the 50% or more, so you have 4 terms. You can at least do 1 term here, which is the fall 2020 semester if you wanted to, and then you still have 3 terms in Canada beyond that. So I'm not sure what the issue is here. You will still be able to do 50% or more of your studies. If the January 2021 is online, right now I can't speculate because it's still quite a bit of ways in the future. And our policies may change where we might accept also January 2021 online. At this time, that is not the case, but things can change. Next. On the website that you are processing applications as soon as possible, is it possible that issuing AIP can be way after the fall classes? Also, will this affect my PGWP eligibility that many months studied without AIP? No, as long as your application was submitted before September 15, you will qualify for the 2-stage process. Next, what about January intake? You can apply as soon as you can. Next question, when can we expect VACs to reopen for biometrics? So I've already answered this multiple times. Next question, I have applied for a study permit for fall under SDS stream in the first week of July and have submitted all the required documents for SDS category. Only biometrics is remaining. Will my application be processed under SDS for approval in principle? Yes. Next, do I have to take IELTS again even though when I applied for my visa it was valid? No. We will accept the results. Next. Has IRCC started providing AIP for Indian students? Yes, we've already begun sending out the letters. Next. When will results of study permits start? So people have already been receiving AIP letters or potentially refusal letters. In terms of visa issuance, not yet, not until VAX reopen. Next, does PGWP get affected if VAX doesn't open in a few months? So the VAC reopening has no factor on whether or not you might get a PGWP for your online classes, right? So our current policy in place doesn't extend to January 2021. That's still far away into the future. A lot of things can happen between now and then. In case VACs remain closed, like I honestly don't know. Our policies will likely change to accommodate this fact. I mean, that's essentially the reason why we introduce these new policies, to address the fact that VACs remain closed and other businesses and panel physicians have limited operations or also closed. And this is to make up for all of that. Next question. If my IELTS score gets expired while I'm waiting AIP, do I need to give it again? No, we will accept the results. Next question. I have a query. When can we expect visa results for student files lodged in March for May 2020? What students have to do with regards to their visa files under process? So if their LOA was for May 2020, you need to submit to us an updated LOA showing that your enrollment has been deferred to a future date, like whether that's fall 2020 or winter 2021. And then once we get that, so it'll be part of the cohort of applications that we're trying to AIP as soon as possible. Next, I'm waiting for my study permit from 3rd March, which is more than 5 months now. So please monitor your online account or your email for updates on your file if we're waiting for anything else from you. Otherwise, you should be receiving your AIP soon. Next, I got my visa 20 March. We'll be pursuing master's in mechanical engineering, so attending practical is mandatory in university. Hence, I got a travel letter from university also. Now, my question is, can I travel to Canada if I have all the essential documents but got visa after March 18? No. According to the current travel restrictions, visa must be issued before or on March 18. Otherwise, you will not be permitted to travel, even if your physical attendance is required. Next, when will we be having AIP for fall intake? Soon. Next, I want to check if study online classes from my home country and work as full-time employee in company will affect my profile? No. Next, when will AIP be issued to Indian students? We are already issuing AIP. Please wait for yours. Next, when will Canada start giving visas for fall intake? When VACs reopen. Next, why institutions are increasing their fees even though this is a pandemic? Please ask the institution. Next, when will IRCC start providing AIPs to international students? We are already starting to provide them. Please be patient to await yours. Next, for January intake, visa process will be the same as first and second stage approval process. At this time, the two-stage process is only for fall 2020. Please wait for updates in case it is extended for winter 2021. This is not confirmed yet. Next. What is the scenario for winter 2021 semester? When will I be able to get to know about the mode of class? You need to ask your institution. Next, what if my PTE expired and visa already in process? We will wait for the result. We will accept the results. Next. I have Lambton College support letter. Can I enter Canada? So what does the support letter say? Is your physical presence required? And why? And on top of that, was your visa issued before or on March 18? If it's yes to all of those, then yes, you can travel. Next, when should we apply for visa for January 2021? Two-stage visa will apply to me. You can apply as soon as possible. The two-stage visa process, as I mentioned, is only for fall 2020. Next, generally online classes starting from 8 September until when can we expect our AIP to start our course? Because if we face rejection, our funds are at stake. So it's up to you to decide if you want to wait or if you want to risk it. but we are working to get you your AIP as soon as possible. Next, I've already submitted a visa application on July 22nd. Great. I do not know when you'll get your AIP, but hopefully it'll be soon if you have all of your documents included. Next, within how many days can we expect results for AIP? So no processing times given at this time. Next, what is the procedure to apply for study permit for winter intake? The same procedure that you use for any other semester in the past. So the procedure to apply has not changed. Next, why international students are ignored. Everyone knows that we students face internet problem, time management problem. So these travel restrictions are in play to keep everyone safe. So everyone just needs to be a little bit patient in how they're dealing with the travel restrictions. And we've implemented these current measures to try to give you the confidence to invest in a Canadian education, even if it's online for fall 2020. Next, I've got LOA for master's course from University of Alberta for fall 2020. However, my department has decided to start classes for fall 2020 from November so that all students can get visa. My query is that I'm final year student in India. My last semester internal assessment result is declared, but complete result with external assessment will be declared soon. It is delayed due to COVID. So can I apply for visa under SDS like this? So I'm assuming that you have a conditional letter of offer of acceptance. And if this is correct, then you need to demonstrate in your application how you meet the conditions on your LOA. If you are unable to demonstrate this, your application may be refused. So maybe two more questions as we're nearing the end of our session here. If I get my approval in principle after program start date of fall 20, then what can be done? Can I switch my college for next intake after getting approval for one college for fall 20 and not being able to join that? I'm honestly not sure what your question means. Why switch colleges if you're already in a program with another one? If you want to switch colleges and programs, that's completely up to you. Last question. When can we expect decision on our application if we submitted our file via SDS category and whether the unavailability of biometrics will result in our file being considered under non-SDS? No. So if you have submitted all of the documents required for SDS, your application will remain in the SDS stream. And if it's only biometrics that's pending, not to worry. When VACs reopen, you can submit your biometrics. In the meantime, your application will remain in the SDS stream. And you should be able to get your AIP if you haven't already received it. Okay, so we're nearing the end of our session. I just want to say thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of the questions. I see that there's 2,282 questions and growing. We do have another session planned for tomorrow, and I think that's already full, but we do have a few more sessions planned for next week, depending on demand. And if you have other questions that maybe hasn't yet been answered in our session, like whether through the slides or through the Q&A section, you have ways to connect with us, ideally on social media. If you have very quick questions, like right now, it's very difficult for us to answer any case-specific questions because we don't have your application in front of us to really give you an accurate answer. And additionally, we're unable to provide any status updates, frankly, on applications. But I do want to say that we are working very hard to get through all of the applications so that everyone can get their AIP letters as soon as possible. So please do be patient. We hope to see you again on one of these webinars. As more changes happen, we'll schedule more of these. So thank you again. Please stay safe, take care, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you, and good day.